this paper studies the persistence of extreme poverty by considering two competing views as to why the poor engage in low earnings occupations. So the first view, what we call the equal opportunities view, emphasizes that this may be due to differences in individual traits, for instance, motivation or talent. The alternative view, what we call the poverty trap, suggests that instead this might be due to different access to opportunities as a result of the fact that they are born poor. Under the equal opportunities view, we would expect the transition equation to look like this. We observe a bimodal distribution of productive assets. There's a very large mass of people with close to zero productive assets, and then another large mass of people with large productive asset holdings. So this is a concave transition equation in which, over time, we see convergence towards this individual's steady state. This bimodal distribution of assets highlights the difficulty of testing for poverty traps empirically, because if there is a poverty trap in this setting, the threshold capital level below which people are trapped would be exactly between these two modes at the lowest density point of the asset distribution. But that threshold is by definition an unstable steady state, so we don't observe anybody there. Under a poverty traps view, we would expect a transition equation like this, either with convex section of the transition equation or with a discontinuity, which means that there is some threshold capital level below which individuals will decumulate back down towards the low steady state and above which individuals will converge up towards the higher steady state. So what we aim to do is conduct a direct empirical test for the presence of poverty traps using individual level data. And we do this using the randomized evaluation of a very large asset transfer program in Bangladesh. So in 2007, a census was conducted of the close to 100,000 households in these villages. They were given a menu of assets from which they could choose. Almost all of them chose bundles including livestock. And then a complementary bundle of training and assistance. What we find is that we can reject the null hypothesis that the transition equation for these individuals was concave, and instead we find very striking evidence that this transition equation has the S-shaped characteristic of the poverty traps view. We observe almost all individuals engaged in wage labor at baseline, but as a result of the program, we also observe almost all of the beneficiaries conducting livestock rearing for at least some period of time. So this allows us to estimate for each individual an individual level parameter describing their productivity in livestock rearing, as well as parameters describing their disutility of working in both livestock rearing and in wage labor. We can then use that to estimate each individual's optimal occupational choice in the steady state and therefore to quantify misallocation. So our results suggest that the poor are not unable to take on the more productive occupations in this setting, but that they are prevented from doing so by lumpy investments and a lack of access to capital. While smaller transfers may be very important in providing a safety net for those close to subsistence, only transfers that are large enough to push these individuals over a capital threshold will be able to solve the problem of persistent poverty in the long run, providing some evidence in support of big push policies to tackle this problem of persistent poverty.